Okay, so figured I'd do a review for the 2010 Wolfman, the Wolfman movie, directed by Joe Johnston. I watched the unrated director's cut. Years ago, I watched this. I think it was the normal cut. So, just want to do a review of this because I just watched the new Wolfman 2025. Wasn't that big of a fan. In my review, I go over the many reasons why, but I think this is a much better movie. It's not a perfect movie. There's some bad CGI and stuff. Although, it's kind of hard to do a Wolfman movie without it. I mean, I know there's American Werewolf in London. Um, that has a great transformation scene. But I don't know, maybe I'll rewatch that too. For some reason, I've been watching a lot of Wolfman movies. I don't know why. And then I watched Werewolves, which I also wasn't a big fan of. But yeah, for me, this is just a better movie than the new Wolfman. I like the setting a lot more. This is in 1891 in Britain. I like the look, the feel of the movies much better. The new Wolfman movie, I didn't like. I didn't like how it was done. I didn't like the setting because there's like three people in the movie. One's the Wolfman, one's his wife, and one's his daughter. And then there's a few other people that are in it for like 10 minutes, like 5-10 minutes. So there's pretty much three people. This has a lot of different characters. I think I like the cast way better in this. You got Benicio del Toro, Anthony Hopkins, Emily Blunt, and the Smith from The Matrix. It works for Scotland Yard. So, just a much better cast and better directed too, I would say. So I think Joe Johnston did a better job. But this is all spoilers. Movie came out like 15 years ago. Upon his return to his ancestral homeland, an American man is bitten and subsequently cursed by a werewolf. So spoilers. His father, Anthony Hopkins, is a werewolf. This is revealed at the end, but I think it's kind of obvious the way he's acting. He ends up biting Benicio del Toro, who's his son, because he's out on a full moon, and Benicio's out there, and then he's hunting him, and he bites him, and then he runs away, and everyone thinks del Toro's gonna die, but he survives. Because there's a gypsy camp with a bear. Anthony Hopkins has another son who dies, which is why Benicio del Toro is coming to figure out how he got killed. Emily Blunt was his wife. He ends up getting killed, so they're investigating his murder. They're blaming the local gypsies. He goes there to investigate. This is when a group of men come to kill the bear. Anthony Hopkins is a werewolf. He attacks the encampment, and then he's going to kill this young boy. And del Toro saves him, but he gets he gets bit. And this sets up the rest of the movie, where you have del Toro's mother was killed. You find out later Anthony Hopkins actually killed her when he was the Wolfman. And this kind of scarred him for life. He doesn't like his father. They have a rocky relationship. He hasn't seen his brother in years, and now he's dead. There's obviously like a romance going on with him and Emily Blunt. I don't know, even Anthony Hopkins and Emily Blunt, it seems like he may kind of be into her too, because he says that he actually killed his son because he was going to leave with her and they weren't ever going to come back. Seems like an odd reason to do it, but okay. I think it's because he wanted Emily Blunt to stay. And Anthony Hopkins is twisted in this movie, man. He's really evil. And like he says to Del Toro, I, I'm dead inside, or I am dead. And he sometimes locks himself in a cage by her grave so that he won't hurt anyone at night. But sometimes he gets out. And that's pretty much the setup for the movie. Yeah, I really like the look of the movie. The cinematography is pretty good. Like I said, there is some CG that isn't great, but some of it's practical, and I think it looks good when it's practical. The scene in the insane asylum is really good when he attacks the doctors there, who just think he's crazy, and they're going to prove to him that he's crazy because they strap him down with all these other doctors watching. And it's a full moon, so they're like, look, you're not going to transform. And then he does, and he ends up killing a bunch of them. And he even warns them. He's like, you're not going to like this. You're all going to die. So, but yeah, this movie just has a much better feel, look. The setting's way better. I think the makeup was better than the new one. Like I said, I think Joe Johnston does a better job than Lee Winnell. There's some things in that new Wolfman movie, like I don't even understand some of the choices he made, which I talk about in my review. Just kind of odd, very odd choices the director made in that movie. But, the movie isn't perfect, this one. Mainly it's the CG, and maybe in the middle there's kind of a lull where you're like, okay, where is this going? Because he ends up turning, into the Wolfman and killing people, but so does Anthony Hopkins, but Del Toro gets blamed for it. So they lock him up in an insane asylum. And then the movie got a little bit better, I think, when he's in the insane asylum. Because you just see like the late 19th century and their science, and it was just like brutal. Like they're dipping them in it's cold water therapy, which was a thing back then. Apparently, Charles Darwin was really into it. I mean, I don't think he would strap himself down and submerge. I think the way he did it was he had giant tanks of water, and they would, like a shower, drop him up. This is freezing cold water too. Drop it on yourself. And this was apparently a very popular thing. Yeah, this is from the Atlantic. Showering has a dark, violent history. In the 19th century, cold rinses and day-long baths became a way to treat and control psychiatric patients. Yeah. So it was very popular. It wasn't just for psychiatric patients, because people that were richer could have showers and were able to do this for mental anguish and I think physical problems too. But I don't know. I don't know if that had any real benefits. I don't think so. But I like how they show that, and he gets submerged. And then they're also, shocking him. They're injecting him with things. And then he turns into the Wolfman, ends up killing a bunch of them. And earlier it's mentioned that after his mother died, he put him in in an insane asylum, probably because he saw Anthony Hopkins as the Wolfman killing his mother, and then probably, you know, basically torturing him to say, okay, you know, he wasn't a Wolfman. Yeah, Anthony Hopkins is very twisted in this, because he ends up, killing his own son. He ends up infecting his other son, you know, with lycanthropy, and putting him in an insane asylum twice. So yeah. And also in this movie, there's definitely like a Beauty and the Beast kind of thing going on between Emily Blunt and Benicio del Toro. So yeah, especially after watching the new Wolfman, I was like, this isn't a perfect movie, but man, is it better. I mean, it has a way bigger budget. This is 150 million. Wow. Really? Is a huge bomb. Made 142.6 million. But Roger Ebert liked it. He gives it 3.5 out of 4 stars. So that's cool. Because he died in 2013. This is 2010. He says the Wolfman avoids what must have been the temptation to update its famous story. It plants itself securely in period with a great-looking production set in 1891. I think the setting definitely helps the werewolf story. Gothic horror stories seem more disguisable when it isn't once great British country houses and people with gloomy introverts, especially when the countryside involves foggy moors and craggy waterfalls. This is, after all, a story set before the advent of modern psychology, when a man's fate could be sealed by ancestral depravity. The film's opening and closing shots are of the full moon, which is correct, as an early exterior shows Chadsworth in Derbyshire, perhaps the grandest of all English country houses. Inside, it is derelict and unkempt, inhabited by the sinister old Sir John Talbot. Anthony Hopkins and his faithful manservant sing. Gas was well known as a means of illumination in 1891, and indeed electric lights were not uncommon. But Sir John makes do with flickering candles carried from room to room, the better to cast wicked shadows. Sir John's son and his fiancée Gwen, Emily Blunt, were living there until recently, when Ben was savagely killed. Gwen writes to long-established estranged brother Lawrence del Toro, an American actor who is appearing in London in Hamlet, and indeed is holding poor Yorick's skull when he first sees him. Lawrence arrives in a foggy, chilly dusk, of course, and his voice echoes in the vast, lonely mansion before his father emerges in the shadows. I love stuff like this. The gloomier, the more ominous, the better. There is a silent, classic name, The Fall of the House of Usher, that actually has dead leaves skulking across a mansion floor. Lawrence views his brother's body, which seems to have made a good meal. Meanwhile, down at the obligatory local pub, the conversations of the locals centered on a strange beast marauding in the district. In the 19th century, a pub served as the evening news. Yeah. Some of this stuff in the pub also kind of reminded me of, like, Lord of the Rings. I don't know, it felt very English. Honestly, a little pub I would like to maybe have a few pints in. More plot you do not require. What you may like to know is that The Wolfman has been made with the care of Joe Johnston and is well photographed by Shelley Johnson and designed by Rick Hendricks. The music's by Danny Elfman. Okay, that's what I thought. I was like, is this Danny Elfman? Because some of the movie kind of feels a little bit like a Tim Burton movie, I would say. But it has helped by Danny Elfman, obviously. But Del Toro makes Lawrence sad, worried, fearful, doomed. It is not the loss of his brother. It's the earlier loss of his beloved mother. The family manse is haunted by his memories. His father, Sir John, however, is played by the bearded Anthony Hopkins, is a man holding up perhaps better than you might expect, and he's well turned out, especially for a man who lives almost in the dark. Yeah, and he almost looks like a wolf. Anthony Hopkins with his like beard, and even when he's not a wolf man, he looks kind of like a wolf man. The film has one flaw, and faithful readers will not be surprised to find it involves a CGI special effects. Yeah, some of them, yeah. No doubt there are whole scenes done so well in CGI that I didn't even spot them, but when the werewolf bounds through the forest, he does so with too much speed. He would be more convincing if he moved like a creature of considerable weight. In the first Spider-Man film, you recall Spidey spun around almost weightlessly. Adding weight and slowing him down in the second film were some of the things that made the sequel great. The werewolf moves so lightly here that he almost cries out, "Look, I'm animated." I'm not sure the natural history of wolfmen, if the condition passed through the blood, apparently. How exactly does one morph from a man into a wolf? By special effects, obviously. So, in any event, The Wolfman makes a satisfactory date movie for Valentine's Day, which is more than can be said for Valentine's Day, which is funny because today was Valentine's Day. Truer love hath no woman than the woman who loves a wolfman, and vice versa, ideally. But yeah, he did like it. This is probably just the normal cut, though. Because I remember back, like, a lot of it was cut because it, was too bloody. Definitely would check out the unrated cut. There is some nice gore. There's some good blood. Some CGI blood that doesn't look great, but heck, after watching that new Wolfman movie, I was like, I'm gonna go back and check this out, and I think this is much better. If anything, just the cast and the setting, but the bear owned by the gypsies was actually recycled animation from the Golden Compass. Yeah, that looked bad. That looked really bad. The dancing bear. The polar bear was changed into a grizzly for this movie. Okay, Hugo Weaving, that's his name. The man in the Matrix. Inspector Francis Aberline Hugo Weaving was based on Frederick Aberline, a Scotland Yard inspector that investigated London's Jack the Ripper murders in 1888. The fantasy version of him very much resembles the one in From Hell. Yeah. I also got some like Sherlock Holmes vibes too. So yeah, all that's really good. Great cast. And then at the end, he's fighting the Wolfman, and he gets bit or scratched. And then, Emily Blunt ends up killing Benicio del Toro, because only someone that loves him can remove the curse, as the gypsies say. And Hugo Weaving is watching on, and you could tell something is wrong with him. So I assume he's going to become the Wolfman. And the sequel that never was, because this was a big flop. Producer and star Benicio del Toro is a huge fan of The Wolfman, 1941, and remained attached to the remake ever since it was first enacted in 2006, and passed through the hands of several directors. Danny Elfman was the original composer for this movie and recorded a complete score inspired by Bram Stoker's Dracula. His score was rejected as it did not fit the new tone of the movie after several reshoots and delays. Paul Haslinger was supposed to replace him, but Universal Pictures pulled him on that and decided to reinstate Elfman's Gothic score. But I think it's a pretty good score. Del Toro's Wolfman makeup took approximately 3 hours to apply and 1 hour to remove. The director's cut begins with the Universal Pictures logo that were being used when The Wolfman 1941 came out. The original fanfare theme is not heard. Talbot Manor is really Chatsworth House, located at the Peak District of Derbyshire, England, though with some digital embellishments. What the? Many actors, including Gene Simmons and David Lee Roth, were called in to do the Wolfman's howls. Okay. In a deleted scene, Lawrence receives a silver wolf-handed cane from a passenger on a train who got it from the village in France, which is considered to be the birthplace of modern werewolf legend and folklore. Shot in 2008, not released until 2010. Wow. But, oh yeah, Rick Baker had based his design of the Wolfman on Jack P. Pierce's design, 1941, the Wolfman. Also on Wolves and Apes and Books, and his old dog Boscow, which he did for the first Academy Award-winning work on American Werewolf in London. This is Benicio del Toro's second time playing a Wolfman. His first theatrical movie role was that of Duke the Dog-Faced Boy and Pee Wee Herman's Pee Wee Big Top, 1988. Both movies had music scored by Elfman and were slammed by critics as weaker imitations of earlier movies, but over time garnered a cult following and a bit more appreciation. I think this has. I haven't watched Big Top in a long time. I just know it's, compared to the first movie, the first movie's great. The first movie's really funny and an entertaining movie, and that is. Originally, Joe Johnston wanted to film the movie in black and white in order to pay homage to the original, but the studio refused. Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, it's almost in black and white. Oh, this is the first movie Joe Johnston directed that was rated R. Mark Romanek was set to direct, but then he fell out. What has this guy done? Bunch of music videos. I don't know. I'm glad that it's Joe Johnston. I think he did an okay job. I mean, this movie got a lot of hate when it came out. I remember watching it years ago and thought it was okay. I think it got a little too much hate, but now that I've seen the unrated director's cut, I think that's a better cut. So that's the one I'd recommend. But yeah, I think that's about it though. I enjoyed it. It has its flaws, like Roger Ebert pointed out. But I think it works, and it's an interesting story. And I think it's just, pretty well made with here and there some bad CGI. Definitely better than the new one and Werewolves from last year. So, but yeah, that's about it though. See you next time.